Good morning, good evening, wherever you are. My name is Mark Borstein. I'm the CTO at Tremolo Security and the co-author of Kubernetes and Enterprise Guide 2nd edition. So in our last video, we deployed OpenUnison with the new OU control command. This video, we're going to add a satellite cluster from multi-cluster SSO, excuse me. So the idea being that when we onboard a new cluster, we don't have to create a new trust with Okta. We're going to use an existing trust with our control plane cluster and then piggyback off of that. Big advantage to that approach is that now I don't have to go back to Okta every time I want to onboard a cluster. So if I, as the infrastructure owner, don't own that connection to Okta, this is a lot easier way to go. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm signed into my control plane cluster, and the first thing we're going to want to do is update the configuration for the control plane cluster so that it does not require, that it does have a portal tree. So something that lets us divide up the badges so that it's a little bit easier to organize, because if all the badges are on the main screen, that's going to get difficult to track. So we are going to come here. So I've got my control plane demo, and I am going to change show portal orgs from false to true. And let's go ahead and run OU control. So this is going to install the auth portal. I'm not specifying my secret again. I don't need to because the OU control command is smart enough to say, hey, there's already a secret there. Let's not bother updating it. So we're going to let that run. That's going to update everything, and we'll come back in a minute when this is done, and we will have a updated control plane. Great, so that's all done. So if we come back here to our control plane, go ahead and log back in again. You'll see we now have this tree. This will allow us to better organize our badges. You can add additional, these are called organizations. You can add additional organizations. The docs have links on how to do that. So let's say you want to put Argo or different applications in their portal. And so the next thing we're going to do is onboard our new cluster. So in order to do that, let's come over here. I've got a YAML, a place to save the YAML ready to go. So I need a new default values. Oops. Here we go. There we go. So I need a new default values. This is very similar to the default values we used last time, except there is no authentication configuration. That's because the OU control command will do that for us. So we do have to update our hosts. We're going to use impersonation again. I believe if I do a change it to satellite, get nodes, OEM, I believe we're on 46. It's in here somewhere. Yeah, 46. All right, so we are going to change this from 192.168 to that. So that's what our new host names are going to be. Again, we're going to just rely on nip.io. We're going to set the cluster name to satellite 1. Really important that you have a unique cluster name. Now, if you don't have a unique cluster name, the OU control command will complain to you. So it makes sure that it is unique. And then we don't need any trusted certs, so we can just go ahead and remove that example. That's it. Next step is to go ahead and deploy our OU control command. So if I do a kube control context, I have my configuration for my satellite. Now I also need to have my configuration for in kube control for my control plane cluster. So go ahead and do that. So kube CTX, I now have both configuration options. So we have that. Let's come back to our instructions here. And I gotta make sure to install the dashboard. So now we have the dashboard on our satellite. And the last step is to go ahead and install our satellite. So we don't have to worry about client secrets. You don't have to worry about configuring authentication because we already know all the different answers. At least OU control knows all the different answers. So it's just going to set all that up for us. So let's go ahead and we're going to run OU control. And this time we're going to use install satellite, our path to our values.yaml. So this is the values.yaml for our satellite. And then the first argument after that is going to be the kube control context for our control plane. And then the kube control context for our satellite. And I'm going to go ahead, hit enter. And the first thing you'll see that happened was our values changed. That's because we now have this OIDC section that was set up automatically for us. So we didn't have to worry about figuring out what the right trust configuration was, what the right URLs were. The other thing you'll notice here is trusted cert. So OU control automatically went through the control plane and figured out what the correct certificate was to trust, whether it was a self-signed cert. In this case, we're using self-signed certs because I just haven't bothered with a real certificate, or if there was like a wildcard certificate or a root cert generated by like certificate authority, that's now there. So you don't have to worry about setting any of that up. So it is right now deploying OpenUnison into the satellite. Once that is done, we will come back. Okay, so that deployment is done. So let's come back here. We're going to do a quick refresh, close these, and we're going to see that we now have satellite. So if we go over to the dashboard, we are now logged into the dashboard on 46. This is 45. So we now have a new dashboard ready to go. We're logged in as our user. Now, I had already set up RBAC on this to bind to one of our groups, so that way we didn't have to worry about that. And then, of course, I come here, I get a kube control command for 46. Kube config gets temp j, k get nodes, nothing, k get nodes. I'm now signed in to satellite 1. I can start doing my job. So I'm going to do watch kube control get nodes, and then just as before, I log out. And within a moment or two, we're going to find that I can no longer access my satellite because my session was killed. And there we go. Session died. Couldn't refresh the token anymore. So we have gone ahead and onboarded a new satellite, accessed the dashboard, accessed kube control, was able to log out, all without having to create a new trust or set up Okta or have to do anything with OpenID Connect or SAML. And the great thing is about this setup is if your control plane uses GitHub, if your control plane uses SAML, if your control plane uses AD, it doesn't matter. All your satellites work the same way, which makes it really easy to automate, really easy to maintain. You can set up your satellites to have specific authorization. So if you only want people in certain groups to see those satellites, you'll do that too. That gets enforced at the control plane as well as down at the individual nodes, or excuse me, clusters. So yeah, so that is the simplicity of multi-cluster authentication and management in the OpenUnison era. I hope you enjoyed it, and drop us a line, hit that smash and subscribe button. Thanks and have a great day.